Hello, readers, and welcome to session 7 of your reading unit on historical fiction. Before we begin today, I'm going to pause and ask you if you have taken the opportunity or the time to listen to the read aloud from Number the Stars. I'm actually going to ask you, have you listened to chapter 5 and chapter 6 before we start our lesson today? So if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to those two, I want you to pause and then come back once you have. Welcome to Grade 4 Virtual Reading Class Session 7, Big Ideas and Small Moments, Symbolism. Before I get rolling today with the actual lesson, I wanted to give you a little background. So symbolism is something that is so exciting for me to teach as a teacher in 4th grade because, believe it or not, when I was younger, no one taught me what that was, and I just kept going along reading complex texts and answering questions because that was what I was told to do. And no one ever really explained to me that symbolism helps you move the text. It helps you understand more deeply what the author was trying to convey. It really wasn't until I was sitting in a college class that a teacher brought back some memories I had of reading a specific book. Actually, it was called The Lord of the Flies. And in that book, there was this conch shell that these boys got their plane crashed and they were left on this deserted island and they had to figure out how to survive. And so they had this conch shell that symbolized like leadership and coming together, and when they held the conch shell is when they had the opportunity to be like the leader or the speaker of the group. And that conch shell was symbolized throughout the entire story. But when I read it through when I was in high school, I never even thought that conch shell had any meaning to the story. But then when I got in college and I was reflecting back on things that I had read when I was younger, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started reading books that I read earlier on, and all of these different things came to light for me. And it was like all along, these little pivotal things that authors put into the craft of their writing actually mean so much more than just the item itself. So today, as we dig deep into this lesson, I hope you get as excited by this as I am. So let's get started. Sometimes when we read books, we come to a place that makes us pause, and other times the text will be written in a don't stop, read on sort of way. So right now, think back as I reread a section of chapter 5 from Number the Stars to you. I'm back in Number the Stars, and I'm rereading a section that really stood out to me in chapter 5, Who is the Dark-Haired One? Well, first of all, that kind of stands out to me too, like the title of the chapter, Who is the Dark-Haired One? Why would an author even use that as a title for a chapter? But then as I started reading, I was realizing, well, the whole chapter is about the hair color of Ellen. So there's this section that I really wanted to read out loud and kind of like show you the moment when I realized, oh my goodness, could this be something more than what it actually says? So this part says, now, Mama said in a strong voice, you have seen that we are not hiding anything. May my children go back to bed? The officer ignored her. Suddenly he grabbed a handful of Ellen's hair, and Ellen winced. He laughed scornfully. You have a blonde child sleeping in the other room, and you have this blonde daughter. He gestured towards Anne-Marie with his head. Where did you get the dark-haired one from? He twisted the lock of Ellen's hair. From a different father? From the milkman? Well, that section right there was kind of like, why in the world does he care if she has two blonde daughters and a dark-haired daughter? Something isn't fully understanding for me as I go through this. And then I start to realize, wait a minute, there's another little passage at the very end of the chapter that I was like, okay, this is making a big connection for me. Anne-Marie relaxed and clenched fingers of her right hand, which still clutched Ellen's necklace. She looked down and saw that she had imprinted the Star of David into her palm. Oh my goodness, the Star of David, brown hair. So this got me thinking. Let's pause and think about some huge questions that readers ask when they get really important parts of the book. You are all thinking about big ideas and big questions from your books. The writer Richard Price said, "The bigger the issue, the smaller you write." This means when you are writing or thinking about big ideas, you lodge your ideas in the smallest details from the story. Readers, today we will learn that when you are thinking or writing about big ideas, as you're doing this today, it's wise to lodge your big ideas in small moments, small details, small objects. Let's try this by thinking about The Tiger Rising. Think about the big messages, the big ideas in that novel. Did Kate DiCamillo follow Richard Price's advice and use small details or small objects to carry the message? Well, I sure think she did. Do you remember from Tiger Rising the suitcase? You remember how the suitcase was always there and symbolized Rob's feelings? How he always had them closed off in the suitcase? Now let's think about whether there are small details or objects in Number the Stars that carry big ideas. If we find objects that hold big meanings, they can be called symbols. Just like what I was talking to you about the conch shell from the book I've read before, Lord of the Flies, and the suitcase from Tiger Rising. In Chapter 5, Number the Stars, I pointed out to you that the Star of David, or the idea of having dark hair, being representation of symbols that are carried throughout this story. In Number the Stars, the Star of David Ellen wears is a symbol that represents her faith tradition of being Jewish. A second type of symbolism in this chapter is the soldiers identifying dark hair, another symbol of being Jews. They believe that blonde hair and blue eyes are superior traits. Both of these represent a symbol of symbolism of something much bigger than the actual item that it is. As you read today, remind yourself of the different sorts of work that readers of historical fiction tend to do at the start, middle, and end of a book. Use the strategies from our Readers of Historical Fiction chart. Throughout this unit, you are learning a few sophisticated reading skills, so be aware of these skills as you read. Monitor for sense, fitting the pieces together, analyzing perspective, determining themes and interpretation. Woo-wee, readers, we've come a long way. So today, make a plan for your reading work today. What of this work are you going to do? Remember to think in big ideas and small concrete specifics, including details and objects. Think about a symbol you have found in your historical fiction book and leaf through the pages to find a passage where that symbol is lodged. Jot down what you are thinking about that symbol. Remember to not just jot about the actual object, but what the object symbolizes. What does that object mean to you as a reader of your story? As you read, keep an eye out for lines, objects, paragraphs, parts that convey one of the themes of the story. When you find that part, think, how does this part fit with what the story is trying to teach about life? Reread that part and ask, why might the author have? And remember that everything is in the book on purpose. Readers, today you will jot in 2 parts. After reading your historical fiction book for 20 plus minutes, I want you to sit down and I want you to identify a symbol from your historical fiction book and jot what that symbol means in the story. And then the second one, I want you to begin to identify a theme in your story by finding a part that makes you think deeper. Jot that thought. Explain how this part fits with the whole story is trying to teach about life and why the author wrote it. Hey readers, it's your turn to get to work. If you have any questions or you're concerned, you can always go to the teacher example that I provide in the agenda to show you how or what you need to be jotting, and you can always reference back in the video. I hope you have a great day. Happy reading!